I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.
We've arrested 2 people in this multiple homicide, a man and a woman, both in their late 20s. We still don't have a motive as such, but the suspects are known to the victims.
The state says 3 generations of the Anderson family had been obliterated, murdered in cold blood on Christmas Eve. This never-before-seen video of the crime scene was shot by detectives.
I recognized the body of what I know is now Scott and Erica and the baby.
Prosecutors say Joseph McEnroe, who sat like a frozen statue in court, and his then-girlfriend, Michelle Anderson, gunned down Michelle's family, angry over money. Linda, who worked with Judy Anderson for the Postal Service, told the 911 operator the day she found the bodies, she suspected Michelle.
The gate is locked, which makes me wonder if her daughter did it, which is scary, because then I might be up here with a murderer.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Kelly. We're back with another video. If you guys are new to the channel, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button. If you are into true crime stories, news, politics, and so much more, I would appreciate it if you guys would join me. And if you are a returning listener or subscriber, thank you as always, guys, for being a friend. I really do appreciate y'all. And please interact with the video if you can. Like the video if you like it. Let me know what you think about the topics in the comments down below. And subscribe. Make sure you're hitting the bell. Whatever you can do, it helps me out, guys. And I thank everyone in advance. So, we're going to talk about a very horrific crime today. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one before. Let me know in the comments. It was relatively new to me. I had never heard of it up until just recently when I saw another YouTuber do a video on it, and it was just chilling the way that the details were laid out about this horrific murder of 6 individuals, an entire family murdered by their loved one, their daughter, and in cold blood on Christmas Eve. It's truly the stuff of nightmares. So we're going to get into the case. We're going to look at some of the court footage from this trial, and we're going to talk about it, y'all. So these murders took place in Carnation, Washington on December 24th, 2007. And like I said, this was a case of familicide at the hands of their daughter. Let's get into first, I want to pay respects to the victims of this horrific case, and I want to mention them by name before we get into all of the grisly details. So the victims were as follows: Wayne and Judy Anderson, who were the mother and father of this family, both 61 at the time. Scott and Erica Anderson, who are both 32, and their 2 young children, Olivia, age 5, and Nathan, aged 3, were all murdered. Their lives taken entirely too soon. Such a shameful and senseless reason, which we'll get into here shortly. Scott was the son and brother of the family. He was son of Wayne and Judy and brother to Michelle, and his wife was Erica. So guys, as you can see from this picture here, there were 3 siblings that were in this family, and luckily one of the sisters, Mary Anderson, was actually not present for this heinous murder, or else she would have also been killed. So at the time of these murders in 2007, Wayne and Judy were living on about 11 acres of property, and they were generously allowing Michelle Anderson, who had previously had issues, she was kind of socially awkward, and they were allowing her and her boyfriend to stay in a trailer on the property rent-free. Wayne was retired from his career, and Judy was working at the post office at the time, delivering mail. Michelle's brother, Scott, and his wife, Erica, and their 2 children lived about 25 minutes away in Black Diamond, Washington, and for the most part would appear to be a very loving and tight-knit family. And then finally, Mary Anderson was their half-sister from a previous relationship that Judy had. And she was also at the time living with her son in Black Diamond, Washington. And the only reason why she wasn't there that day was because her son had come down with a cold, and she felt that it was best to stay home and tend to his illness. So Mary and Joseph McEnroe were 29 years old at the time of the murders, and she was the youngest of all of the siblings. And some would go on to say that she was very spoiled and she was kind of handled with kid gloves within her family. Her parents tended to cater to her more so than they did the other siblings, and it seemed like she needed the most attention and support out of everyone in the family. The Anderson family had a very bizarre and complicated dynamic amongst them. It was said by many people that Michelle often appeared to be jealous of both Scott's wife Erica as well as her half-sister Mary, and appeared to want all of her parents' attention all for herself, and would oftentimes come across as a very spoiled brat and someone who did not deal with any sort of obstacles or not getting her way very well. She would oftentimes become belligerent and irate if she didn't get her way. She ended up meeting Joseph McEnroe in an online chat room. And then after about 6 months of talking strictly online and exchanging pictures, which Joseph McEnroe would later go on to describe as somewhat old pictures, were sent to him that were misleading, if you can call it that. I guess he was trying to say that he was somewhat catfished by this woman who sent him pictures of her from a younger age, and he ended up agreeing to move to Washington after about 6 months, and would later testify that he was surprised at how Michelle actually looked whenever he finally met her in person. He went on to testify that she described herself as Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, muscular but trim. She wasn't particularly muscular. She was kind of big. I was taken aback and surprised. McEnroe decided to disregard it because I came out here for love, but not because of the size she is. So, needless to say, he was disappointed, but he still wasn't mad at a free place to stay. So, there was plenty of jealousy that was going on. There was plenty of turmoil that lay just below the surface. So things really started to get a little bit more tense, and the situation elevated because of money issues that began to pop up. So Michelle and Joseph were angry because they don't feel like they were getting the help that they deserved or wanted from Michelle's parents. They had also said to have loaned Scott some money. The amount was disputed. At one point, Michelle claimed that it was $40,000 she had loaned Scott, and others claimed that it was about $3,000. And she was also wanting him to help her fix a vehicle and a motor that he, because of having a family, did not have time to devote to simply her every whim and wish and need. But nevertheless, she was living on this property rent-free, and not only was that situation boiling below the surface, there was also her parents who appeared to present an idea to the couple of them helping out with some of the bills from this trailer and the expenses that were associated with living there. And they wanted her and Joseph to begin paying for the electricity, the gas, and just the basic utilities, and helping out in that sense. Not even paying a full rent payment, just simply helping with the bills. And this was something that enraged Michelle, and she felt slighted at the time as Christmas Eve was rapidly approaching in 2007. So at some point they ended up drafting a rental agreement and a contract that they wanted Michelle and Joseph to sign, which appeared to be the breaking point, and this enraged Michelle and caused her to come up with a scheme to end the life of her family. So after doing some very sloppy planning and discussing this plan amongst one another, they finally put it into motion. And on Christmas Eve 2007, the Anderson house was ready for the Christmas Eve festivities. There was food cooking on the stove. The house was decorated with Christmas decorations. Presents were under the tree. And the family was en route to come and celebrate together this very special day of Christmas, as they did every year before. The plan was for the entire Anderson family to attend the Christmas Eve dinner around 5. And the first to arrive, as they lived on the property, were Michelle and Joseph, and they got there around 2 p.m. This would set off a chain of events that would lead to the death and destruction of an entire family unit and the murder of 6 individuals, including 2 young children. Scott and Erica and the kids were set to arrive around 4 p.m. Joseph went on to testify that he sat with Wayne for about half an hour watching TV, and Michelle was in the kitchen with Judy making a green bean casserole and helping her mother out. And both had concealed handguns that were hidden on their bodies with the intention of murder. So at one point, Wayne indicated that Michelle and Joseph may want to move their truck because Scott was coming soon. And it was at this point that Joseph said to Michelle, took her aside and said to her that if she was going to be moving the truck, that they needed to make a move on this plan. And if they were going to do it, they needed to get it over with. Or if not, they should just leave. So after this conversation, they decide to go forward with the plan. And at this time, Wayne was still in the living room relaxing, and Judy was in the craft room. She was wrapping up presents. So Joseph went into the craft room to talk to Judy and distract her from what was about to happen. And Michelle went into the living room to approach her father, Wayne, who was sitting awaiting their Christmas Eve dinner. From the other room, Joseph and Judy heard "What the hell?" from Wayne and a gunshot. Michelle was standing at the back of the couch, and he had turned around to see his daughter standing there with a gun pointed at him. And at this time, she fired upon her father, but ended up missing. And it was at this point that her gun ended up jamming. So she called out to Joseph for help. And so Joseph and Judy both come running. Judy, in order to see what the commotion was and to assist her husband, and Joseph to assist with this diabolical plan set forth by him and Michelle. So at this time, Judy and Wayne were both in the living room together, and Judy got in between Wayne and Michelle. And the tensions were obviously very high as Michelle pointed a gun and shot at her father. And Joseph enters the kitchen, as does Michelle. Wayne begins to charge at both of them. And it was at this time that Joseph pulled his gun and fired on Wayne. And he ended up hitting him somewhere on his body. And he falls, and it was at this time that he ended up delivering the fatal shot to Wayne in his head. Judy then proceeded to run to the kitchen and tried to hide in order to avoid the same fate. But it was to no avail. Joseph found her, and he shot her twice, killing her. Joseph later went on to testify that Judy had pleaded and begged for her life, and the last thing she said to him was no, and he admitted that he apologized before delivering the final gunshot wound that would ultimately end her life. So after they had murdered her parents, there was some discussion between them where Joseph indicated to Michelle that he was done killing because he had been forced to kill both of her parents, which was not initially going to be the plan. Michelle had been the one who was supposed to have pulled the triggers that would have ended the lives of both of her parents. And it was not only convenient that she missed the very first shot, standing over her father. So after this was done, they were anticipating the arrival of Scott, Erica, and the children. and they ended up having another conversation amongst themselves about the fate of the two young children. And they ultimately decided at this time that the children would also have to meet the same fate as the rest of their family because they were, quote, already corrupted, and that if they weren't already, they would be by this. So the next step in their plan was to move the mother, Judy, and the father, Wayne, out of the house so that when the family arrived, they could pretend as if everything was perfectly normal and that there was nothing nefarious going on within the house, and that these people would basically be walking unknowingly to their death. So they dragged Wayne's body outside and towards the shed and draped a rug over his body in an effort to conceal him. And Joseph said he put a bag over Judy's head because he didn't want to look at her because of the emptiness where she should be. So Michelle indicated to Joseph that he should place Judy's body into the shed, which he would later go on to do at the behest of this woman. Another disturbing fact that would later come out in trial was that when Wayne was found, the bottom of his socks were completely clean, which indicated obviously that he had not walked outside on his own volition. But his pants and underwear were also down around his ankles, which the couple, the gruesome murderous couple, would later go on to say that this happened while his body was being dragged outside. But some would later go on to speculate that this may have been done as a last-ditch effort to humiliate her father in some sick and twisted way. And another very disturbing detail that came out was that there was a boot print found on his torso that matched Michelle's boots that she was wearing at the time. So not only had she killed her father, but she attempted to humiliate and embarrass him by denigrating his corpse after his murder. So they then proceeded to attempt to clean up the crime scene, got cleaning supplies from their trailer, began to try to soak up the blood that was left behind and clean up this crime scene so they could truly take these people by surprise and confront them in a way that would not have any indication that something gruesome was about to take place. So once Scott and Erica and the children arrive at the home, they're met by Michelle and Joseph, and we're curious as to why their parents were not present at the moment, but were explained away by Michelle and Joseph as they would be returning soon. So they sit down in the living room. They were both still concealing handguns on their persons, and at this point, Michelle, who was standing in the living room, facing opposite of the family, Scott, Erica, and the two children who were sitting on either side of their mother, she confronted Scott and asked, "Where's my money?" And Scott, being kind of caught off guard by this, he was upset and he claimed to not know what she was talking about. So with little further explanation or time to react, at this point, Michelle begins to fire on Scott, hitting him with a bullet under his chin. Scott began to charge at her. She fired at him once more, and the shot went into his abdomen. So it was at this time that there was a physical altercation between Scott and Michelle, where he was actually able to get his hands around her and attempted to wrestle this gun away from her and attempt to save his life and the life of his family. So Joseph at this point reacted and began freaking out, trying to pull Scott off and attempting to pry the gun away from Michelle. So finally he was able to subdue Scott, and he was shot once again, where he finally succumbed to his injuries. During this confrontation and in the midst of the struggle, Erica had gotten the phone and called 911. Once Joseph realized this, he got the phone away from her and pulled the battery out, indicating to her that it was hopeless and there was going to be no help coming for them. And it was at this time that Joseph reloaded his gun and proceeded to murder Erica in front of her two children. He later would go on to testify and say that he did this out of compassion so that she would not have to watch her two children be murdered. So, yeah, I mean, just absolutely disgusting thought process there, and just the fact that he thought that this was some sort of noble act is truly a peek inside the mind of a sociopath. And again, Erica pleaded with both Michelle and Joseph, begged them that they did not have to do this, that they were loved by the family, pleaded for her children's lives, but it was to no avail, and she succumbed to her injuries as well. And let's listen to the 911 call made by Erica, which was very short. There was some screaming heard by the dispatcher, but there was no indication that this was an actual 911 call, and the dispatchers did end up sending police out there to the property, but the gates had already been locked behind the family. And when the police arrived on scene after this 911 call and came upon a locked gate, they were not able to proceed onto the property because of this, and ended up leaving, which would have horrifying consequences and be just a very tragic turn of events that would later be found out after all of this was said and done.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
So next to be murdered was Nathan, who Joseph said was the nearest to him, which is why he was then shot and killed, followed by big sister Olivia. Joseph went on to testify that Nathan, after being shot, had held up the phone batteries and showed them to him. And he testified that he had took this to mean that Nathan was accepting of what was about to happen to him and what had happened to him, which is so sick and twisted and demented that a 3-year-old would make that sort of declaration to this sick ass man that he was accepting or he was understanding of what was happening to him. Absolutely horrific and just sick to know. I mean, it's unfathomable to think that you would actually say this at your murder trial, indicating that a child looked up at you and understood why you were fixing to end his life. He then went on to testify that he went on to finish off Olivia, meaning he murdered her as well, the little girl. So after they were done murdering these 6 family members of theirs, they ended up leaving the property and left for about 2 days in order to try to establish some sort of alibi, which was to no avail. And it was later discovered after 2 days of the bodies being there at the house. One of Judy's co-workers ended up coming to their home because Judy had not showed up for work, and she made the gruesome discovery of the bodies of this family. So let's listen to that 911 call.
There's been a murder. There's 3 people dead that I can see right now.
Inside?
I just came up. She works with me.
Inside a house?
Yes.
What do you see?
There's a baby and a man and a woman, and she's my best friend.
You just heard the voice of Linda Teal calling 911 to report the murder of the 3 people that lay before her, one of which was her best friend, Judy Anderson. What she didn't know was that what she was seeing at the moment was only the beginning of the horrors that took place in that home on Christmas Eve 2007.
McEnroe says Scott died fighting for his life, wrestling his sister Michelle, who is still holding the gun.
I tried to pull him off, and I couldn't pull him off because he was just too big.
Scott's wife Erica tries to call 911, but McEnroe grabs the phone.
And so I just pulled out the battery and threw it.
Did you listen on the phone? Did you know it was a 911 call?
Yes.
Okay.
It said it on the phone.
At this point, why not, again, would be a good point to stop, wouldn't it? Right?
I thought we were too far for that. I'm sorry.
McEnroe says Michelle fires again, hitting Erica multiple times and 5-year-old Olivia once. Erica, hoping to save her children, begs McEnroe to stop.
No, we love you. You don't have to do this. I'm sorry, Erica. I shot her first so that she wouldn't have to watch her children die.
McEnroe fires the gun 2 more times.
I shot Nathan because he was close, and then I shot Olivia.
Before he died, 3-year-old Nathan made a heartbreaking offering.
Yeah, he had actually showed held up the phone battery and showed it to me like he understood and accepted what was going on.
The prosecution says McEnroe murdered the Andersons because of money. McEnroe says his girlfriend tricked him into killing a loving family.
Because she was jealous? Because she felt entitled? Well, I was really her attack dog when this stuff happened. Guard dog.
The defense showed jurors this letter Michelle wrote to McEnroe from jail, hoping to reveal her manipulation.
Your options, unfortunately, are life imprisonment or execution by lethal injection.
Facing the death penalty, the convicted killer says he wants redemption.
You're not a lost cause. You can still do some good, even in the world of prisons and stuff, and still help.
After the Christmas Eve murders, McEnroe says he went back to the crime scene looking for those phone batteries as the victims laid there dead. The state says their cross-examination will last more than a day.
So truly grisly event here that happened to this family, and just completely senseless and seemingly without cause. I mean, you can try to put a motive on this, but there really isn't one that would even make any sort of sense to anyone. I mean, this was totally and completely senseless and tragic and just motivated by selfish and needless reasons that ended the life of a loving family for absolutely no reason. After the 911 call was made on the 26th by Judy's friend, the couple who had disappeared for a couple days actually returned to the scene of the crime, which you guys can see here, them walking onto the property, acting like they knew nothing of what had transpired inside of this gruesome scene. They had arrived and were acting as if they were just as surprised as everyone else who was there. So you can see them walking down the driveway with the police officers in the crime scene investigative unit there, cosplaying as a grieving daughter and son-in-law who were learning of the murders of their entire family. So pretty heinous, pretty sick and twisted individuals, to say the least. So now I want to show you guys some of the trial footage and listen to a bit of Michelle's confession that she would later give to police after it was made abundantly clear to the officers there on scene that not only did these two people know more than what they were letting on, but they had a very good indication that these were the people who were responsible for these murders that they had been there on scene investigating. So let's listen to a little bit of this.
As soon as I shot that kid, I felt so bad. Like, what the hell have I done? I'm a monster.
Prosecutors say that is the voice of Michelle Anderson calling herself a monster after detectives say she killed 6 members of her own family.
The Christmas Eve murders stunned all of Western Washington, and Hannah Kim has been following this trial since the beginning. Hannah, today jurors heard Michelle's entire interview with investigators. It must have been so difficult.
Yeah, it was very difficult. Now, even with detectives and reporters swarming her parents' home, detectives say Michelle Anderson never once asked about the well-being of her family. So they got suspicious and eventually got the chilling confession to the murders.
Where did you guys spend last night?
Michelle Anderson told detectives she and her boyfriend, Joe McEnroe, were on their way to Vegas on the night 6 family members were murdered.
Did you ever harm your family?
No.
Halfway into her 2-hour interview with detectives, Michelle breaks down and admits to killing her parents, Wayne and Judy Anderson, her brother Scott, sister-in-law Erica, and their 2 children, 5-year-old Olivia and 3-year-old Nathan.
As soon as I shot that kid, I felt so bad. Like, what the hell have I done? I'm a monster.
Okay.
I turned into a monster. I told Joe to lie to cover up what I did.
Brewing with anger over money, Michelle says she planned out the Christmas Eve murders for 2 weeks.
My brother owes me a lot of money.
Okay.
And he refused to pay me back. And he knows we've been struggling.
Michelle says they shot her parents first, hiding their bodies in a backyard shed. Then the couple waited for her brother's family to show up.
It was time to rip the gun out of my hand while I was shooting him. I shot 4 shots into Scott with the revolver and 2 into Erica. I ran out of bullets. That's why he shot the kids.
She says she ordered McEnroe to shoot her niece and nephew. In her desperate attempt to save her kids, Erica tries to call 911.
She lunged over the couch even though she had been shot.
They grab the phone from Erica, turning the gun on the kids.
What was the kids doing before they were shot?
They were playing to their mom. I just thought if they saw the parents, they'd be scarred for life.
Michelle Anderson showed little emotion in court as she listened to her taped interview. This is the entire transcript, 112 pages in all. Joseph McEnroe was convicted of the murders last year. At the King County Courthouse, Hannah Kim, Q13 News.
Very chilling. I mean, she sounds emotional, but there's really nothing that indicates to me that she has any remorse. The fact that she would have some sort of justification, some sort of reasoning, as if money would ever be a reason to do this to your family, is disturbing, to say the very least. And the description of the scene there by her is just bone-chilling.
Convicted killer Joe McEnroe broke down on the stand as he described murdering his girlfriend's family in Carnation. The outburst was the first time McEnroe showed any emotion in the more than 3-month trial. KARO 7's Allison Grandy was in court as he tried to convince the jury to spare him from the death penalty. Allison?
Monique, it was unexpected to see any emotion from Joe McEnroe. He was talking about the look on Judy Anderson's face after he shot her. Then he lost it.
See the emptiness where she should be.
Convicted killer Joseph McEnroe broke down, grabbed his head, and cried. McEnroe told the jury how he killed 6 members of the Anderson family on Christmas Eve 2007. Wayne Anderson was shot first, then Judy.
Then she wasn't moving anymore, and so I went over by where she was, and I told her that I was sorry, and I shot her in the head.
McEnroe blamed his girlfriend, Michelle Anderson, for the killings. She said her brother owed her money and said her family was out to get them.
What did you do to try to stop this, Joe?
I can't even say now. I tried everything that I could.
His attorney asked him why he didn't just leave.
Wow.
Well, why not just walk out the door and then leave?
I couldn't do that.
Why not stop Michelle Anderson?
Why not just shoot Michelle? My goodness.
She was... For all that, I mean, I don't mean to make her sound like she's like this monstrous person.
The defense put McEnroe on the stand to try to convince the jury that he should get life in prison, not the death penalty. When he talked about the killings, he told the jury,
At least nobody suffered. The way that it is, at least nobody suffered.
McEnroe's not done on the stand. The prosecutor will get a chance to cross-examine him here later this week.
I'm sorry, at least nobody suffered. Okay, yeah. I don't know what world these people live in. I just don't understand a sociopath, psychopath, whatever you want to call it. Their train of thought, if they even have a train of thought, their reasoning is insane to me, because how did no one suffer? How does one not suffer witnessing their loved ones being murdered one by one in front of them at the hands of their family members? How does a mother not suffer knowing that her children are going to meet the same fate as she is currently meeting, as she is being murdered by her family? How does a mother not suffer knowing that her child is behind this plan to end her life? I mean, I would argue that there was a massive amount of suffering that took place that day. And it was palpable, I would say. So just an absolutely idiotic statement. And he gained no sympathy from me with that testimony whatsoever. And I don't even understand why you would want to spend the rest of your life in prison living with that, knowing that you did that. I mean, I'll never understand that. And ultimately, he was sentenced to life in prison in 2015, which is insane to think of. 8 years after these murders took place. this was finally decided. And then her case went to trial the following year. We'll look at one more video of Michelle, who broke down in court as well at some point.
I need an advocate because they lie to me.
Ma'am, we've been through all of this before.
Yeah, you ignored me repeatedly.
Okay, ma'am, please don't say any more.
That is an accused killer lashing out at her lawyers in court. There's a whole lot of drama today in the trial of Michelle Anderson. She's accused of murdering 6 members of her own family. Andrew Padula shows us it all happened as Anderson was about to take the stand in her own defense.
I would like to testify and I would like to have an opportunity to defend myself.
Michelle Anderson wanted to take the stand in her murder trial, but soon the judge learned her plan wasn't to defend herself against 6 murder charges. She wanted to tell the jury her complaints about her attorneys.
I want new attorneys and I want to be represented up
That's
there.
not answering my question.
It's illegal to have me testify without effective assistance of counsel.
The jury wasn't in the courtroom during Anderson's outburst. Her attorneys told the judge she had refused to communicate with them for several years, and they are worried about her testifying because they don't know what she'll say.
But because of the attorney-client communication breakdown, the utter lack of an attorney-client relationship, we're not effective. We cannot effectively advise her with respect to this decision.
Anderson's attorneys tried to calm her down and get her back on track, but it didn't work. Anderson is charged with 6 counts of aggravated murder in the 2007 shooting deaths of 6 members of her family, which included her parents, brother, and a young niece and nephew. The defense case was set to begin today with Michelle's testimony.
Ma'am, my question is this. Do you wish to testify or not?
I'm going to tell you in front of the jury that I do not have effective assistance of counsel. So my rights are being violated. It has to be on the court record so I can have this appealed.
In the end, Anderson chose not to take the stand, and the defense chose to rest its case without calling a single witness. Tomorrow, the jury will hear closing arguments. Anderson's former boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, is serving 6 life terms after a jury convicted him of the same crimes last year. In Seattle, Andrew Padula, Q13 News.
So just an absolutely heartbreaking story. Ultimately, the 2 people responsible did get convicted and were met with justice, even though it took some 8 years for that to happen. Regardless, it's unfathomable to me to think of doing something this grotesque and this evil to end the life of your very own family, your nieces, your nephew, your brother, your mother, your father. I mean, I just will never be able to reconcile why a person would do that to their family. I mean, your family is the most important people that you will ever have in your life. I mean, they are literally the reason for existence, and to do such a heinous act to them is something that only monsters do. So I agree with her that she was a monster and she is irredeemable, and so is her good-for-nothing boyfriend who just went along, it would appear. Although I would also say that I don't believe any of his lies either. I think that he's just as bad as she is, and he was just as ready and willing to commit these murders on her family as she was. There was no peer pressure. There was no overpowering that took place of him to make him do this. You know, you might argue, low IQ, manipulation, whatever the case may be. They were both willing participants in this evil act, and their judgment will come hopefully sooner rather than later. So both individuals are currently being housed in Washington state prisons, both serving life sentences. And I hope they're both haunted by what they have done for every single day for the rest of their lives, because it's nothing short of pure, unadulterated, inhumane evil. These crimes that they perpetuated against this family, who was only there to celebrate Christmas Eve and to spend time with the ones that they loved, the people that they held near and dear, and were met with pure violence and unhinged contempt for nothing. over jealousy, over complete irrational jealousy and greed that really had no factual basis behind it. I mean, they got it in their mind that they wanted to do this for reasons that they had that were absolutely not based in fact and were not even coherent on any level. So I pray for this family. I pray for their remaining daughter who had to live through all of this, knowing that she could have lost and probably ultimately should have lost her life that day had she have been there. Her son probably would have also lost his life at the hands of these two psychopaths who did this and then showed up 2 days later completely unfazed by their actions and trying to play off what they had done, which ultimately did not work, thank goodness, and they were eventually brought to justice. But what do you guys think about this one? This one was very, very difficult to research, just totally horrifying and gruesome case. And it's always a difficult situation when you have family members who are committing these acts of violence, these murders on one another. I mean, it's just something, like, again, I will say it's just incomprehensible to me how you can harm your own family, especially little ones. So I would love to know your guys' thoughts about this case. Please like this video if you liked it, guys, and subscribe if you want to see more like this. And please discuss in the comments below what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts on this case and any other additional theories you may have or information that you may have about this one. Leave it in the comments, guys. I would very much appreciate that. And yeah, very, very sad and difficult case. And again, rest in peace to Wayne and Judy, Scott, Erica, Olivia, and little Nathan. Y'all take care of yourselves. Until next time, I will see y'all later. Bye.
I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.